All right, good Wednesday afternoon, everyone. Thanks for stopping by for a check of your forecast. Hope everyone's doing well today. It is August 13th, the year of our Lord 2025. We are getting close to 4 o'clock this afternoon here in Amarillo. A little bit warm out there, but certainly not unbearable. We're actually near normal for our temperatures this afternoon, but we are expecting some hotter weather tomorrow and again on Friday. Fortunately for us, it's going to be pretty short lived, and so we'll likely see some cooler weather, comparatively speaking, moving into next week, and we may even see some moisture chances come back into play by maybe even this weekend. So that'll be what we're talking about today in your afternoon weather update. Let's go ahead and take a look around the region. You can see we've got some storms down in south and central Texas, mostly around the hill country and back around Austin. A lot of this stuff is very isolated storms, so not a whole lot of people benefiting from them, but there are some very heavy downpours out there. Also seeing a lot of that out here in the southeast portion of the country. And then a little bit some monsoon moisture out there in parts of Arizona and New Mexico. Taking a live look outside here in Dimmitt, you can see that we've got a few of those fair weather cumulus clouds, maybe a weak attempt at a tower going up, but really not expecting any rainfall today across the area. We are expecting predominant sunshine today. Here's those afternoon high temperatures so far. These are not official for the day. Obviously, we've still got maybe another hour or so of daytime heating, which we could still see temperatures warm up a bit before that sun gets too low on the horizon. But we've so far made it to 91 in Amarillo. Average high is 92. And so we're pretty close to where we should be this time of year. 93 currently in Dumas, 91 in Tucumcari. We've made it to 94 in Perryton, which seems to have been one of our more hot spots, localized anyway. Dew points in the 50s and the 60s. So it's a little bit more muggy the further southeast you go. We're really going to run through your forecast again, at least here in the short term, because there's not a whole lot to talk about other than heat. You just want to make sure that you're going to stay hydrated, drink plenty of water. If you're going to be spending time outside, especially later in the day, tomorrow we should make a run for the upper 90s. Not many of us will get into the lower 100s, but it is possible for places like Canadian, Childress, Borger, Guyman, maybe Perryton, getting up there to about 100 degrees. So just make sure that you do take those breaks as needed and certainly make sure you stay hydrated. Any storms that do get going should be up towards Colorado and New Mexico. Same story for Friday. We're going to start off in the high 60s, low 70s. We'll get back up into the mid and upper 90s in the afternoon. Maybe a spot or two getting to 100 degrees, but most of us should stay shy of the century mark. So here's what we're really watching in terms of the possible flip in our weather pattern. You can see this ridge of high pressure just kind of merging over areas like the Arklatex and then back over towards the Ozarks. We've got, there's going to be likely a tropical wave. It could even be a named storm by the time it comes on shore by this weekend here across the Texas Gulf Coast. But it's this weak disturbance is going to ride underneath this ridge of high pressure. And so that's going to pull in at least some tropical moisture. Whether it becomes a fully named storm or not, still a little bit too soon to talk about, but there are some suggestions that it could potentially become a tropical depression, maybe even a named tropical storm before it gets on shore by this weekend. So that'll be something to monitor. I think for us, it's just going to be remnant moisture by the time it reaches the high plains. But we should be in a primed opportunity to have that precipitable water, or at least those higher water values, get into the South Plains. Now, if we can get some better disturbances to come through the southwest flow, that could maybe spark some of those isolated storm chances that we've been talking about, or at least alluding to for Sunday and Monday moving into next week. Now, this ridge of high pressure is expected to eventually shift west again. When that happens, it will probably cut off that chance for rain. But right now, thinking probably Sunday and Monday will be our two best favored days for any kind of isolated to perhaps scattered thunderstorm chance, but it's not going to be a guarantee. Right now, the Climate Prediction Center's kind of got us in a near normal chance for our next 6 to 10 days, which does not include Sunday and Monday. And so, again, I do think this may end up being our two better days for rain chances. So it will be something to monitor heading into the weekend. Not really expecting severe weather, but maybe some locally heavy downpours. When we're talking about precipitable water values of 1.5 to 2 inches over our heads for this time of the year, even that's climatologically the maximum that we normally get. And so they're going to be really heavy rainmakers if we do get storms to develop. I just don't think severe weather is going to be much of a concern for us. Maybe some downburst winds, but other than that, would suggest that a lot of this will be probably just more like tropical downpours, just given the amount of moisture that we could have. It's been pretty wet this year in the high plains. A lot of us have seen anywhere from 100 to 200% of our precipitation average so far through August 12th. So we've been very fortunate to have a lot of water. Just, talking with a couple of people I know down in Central Texas, they had a pretty wet season this year as well. Much of the Texas ended up being pretty cool as well for the growing season. Not saying that it's going to be a record crop down in Central Texas, but they are harvesting corn right now. And from the people that I've talked to, saying they're making some pretty good yields down there, some of the best that they've had. And so that has a lot to do with having less stress, heat stress down there. They actually haven't even made it to 100 degrees yet in Waco, so we beat them getting to 100 here in Amarillo. But we also have had some good moisture, and it's been pretty consistent moisture. We've stayed wet. They've stayed wet through the late summer months, and usually that big heat dome, the dog days of summer kicks in usually at end of June. So all of July and August usually are very hot, very dry, and they've had some pretty good moisture down there even in the last 30 to 45 days. And then for us, we've just had consistent moisture from mid-April on to about now. Things are getting a bit more sporadic in nature, so we haven't seen as much widespread rainfall for the area. So there are a few pockets out there that are starting to maybe see a little bit of some stress on the grass, but overall, it's not too bad. We may see a slight expansion of the abnormally dry conditions from the drought monitor, which is going to be put out tomorrow morning. But right now, we'll go back and show you guys what it looks like. Got to come up here and find it first. But we've just got abnormally dry conditions in areas like eastern New Mexico, and really even out there, they've been relatively wet. So here's what it looks like. I mean, you can see most of the Texas Panhandle. Really, none of us are in drought conditions because that first region is just considered a little bit drier than normal. So Clovis, Portales included in some of those areas. I would argue that you guys probably aren't in abnormally dry conditions, especially up here on the northern side of this. Let me go ahead and see if I can't pull it up to show you guys. I'm going to show you our precipitation through the last, we'll start with the last 30 days, and then we'll just kind of jump through from there. So here's the last month. This is just our percent of normal. So you can see the deep South Plains have seen some drier weather as of late. Again, that's not necessarily a terrible thing for the ag commodities down there. They are kind of getting towards the end of the growing season, and so that warmer, drier weather does help finish off that crop. Again, there's been some pretty good soil moisture though. You can see Clovis on here, 85% of normal, but you've got areas like Elida or Melrose at 122%. I mean, you can even see Tucumcari at 301% over the last 30 days. So running out 60 days in advance, you can see there's a lot more green down here. This does include that big MCS event that produced some of that historic flooding down in the hill country. For us, it's just been timely rainfall. It's been a lot of moisture there for Conchas and Ute Lakes watersheds. Fort Sumner areas down in Portales and Clovis have seen a little bit above normal moisture. We've been a bit above normal over the last 2 months. But if you look at really the whole year in general, we're going to go back 180 days. You can see it's just a lot of green and blue showing up in the Lone Star State, showing up in south and central Oklahoma. Parts of eastern New Mexico have been very, very wet, and so that's been why we've got a lot of grass out there. I mean, from Dalhart to almost Perryton, you're right at average for precipitation. You go south of there into the Canadian River Valley, definitely been above normal. Highway 60 corridor has been way above normal, especially from really Carson County southwest towards Curry and Roosevelt, and then back into eastern New Mexico. It's been exceptionally wet this year, especially along and just south of the Canadian River Valley. There's a lot of grass growing out here, which is probably going to in turn bite us in the rear next spring when we get into the peak of our wildfire season. Right now, we've had some lightning-induced grass fires, which isn't out of ordinary for us. Again, that grass gets pretty dry at the top, and sometimes those lightning strikes outside of a storm can start a grass fire, but we really don't get a lot of our high wind events this time of the year, at least long-term, prolonged, big windy days. A lot of that stuff comes in February, March, and April, and that's usually when we get some of our larger fires around the region. So all of this water is great right now. It is letting the grass grow. It's been very consistent and timely rains, and so that grass has utilized a lot of it. And so there's a lot of above normal fuel loading out here in the Canadian River Valley, and especially in the Southwest Texas Panhandle and back into eastern New Mexico. So these areas, I think we may have to really keep an eye on, a close watchful eye, next spring, if any fires were to break out during those high wind event days, things could certainly, there's going to be a lot of fuel out there, which would be the biggest concern, especially in those rugged terrain areas like the river valley. Some of those may be really hard to put out fires just because of the topography. That's all I've got. I'm going to quit rambling for you guys. Thank you so much for stopping by. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon. Again, just stay hydrated the next couple of days. Should be a little bit warmer than normal. But overall, we do expect maybe a slim chance of rain to come back into the forecast as we jump into Sunday and Monday, and we might